Natalie Winters. And Natalie, why don't we tee up? We got a clip to play for you. Why don't you tee up what's going to be in the clip, and then we'll play it.
Sure. Well, the mainstream media, in concert with these far-left NGOs, are actively working to sabotage President Trump's mass deportation agenda. And we're seeing this pattern replicate in state after state, city after city, and raid after raid. Tom Homan made news yesterday. He was speaking on Fox, talking about how a raid out in Colorado had been actively sabotaged by someone who essentially preemptively leaked information about an ICE raid they were going to go on to get several Nicaragua members. Instead, they were only able to nab one. I think this sort of goes back to that infamous Wall Street Journal article that you were talking about, Steve, prior to President Trump being sworn in, right, where they were sort of leaking, if not doxing, preemptively, not from White House sources, but from likely these far-left activist types, like I said, working in collaboration with mainstream media outlets. We can play that clip, but just to contextualize, it's not just happening in Colorado. There's also a big LA Times piece coming out this weekend, which I'd love to just read a quote from. If you want to talk about sabotage, quote, "Federal law enforcement agents are planning to carry out a large-scale immigration enforcement action in the Los Angeles area before the end of February, according to an internal government document reviewed by the Times." I've never seen something that accounts to treason, but a buried lead in that article. Here's a quote, speaking with an official from ICE. "Just because certain information is being given doesn't mean it's the administration's plan, because they know some agents are going to be resistant."
This is that's stunning. I mean, somebody inside of DHS or Tom Homan's group or whatever, what you call the embeds, actually gave the report, gave the plan. This is what happened in Chicago. They're giving the plans to the media in advance. The media publishes them. Then the raid is canceled. Let's go ahead. If Denver, let's play the clip, and we'll bring our White House correspondent, Natalie, back in.
I have so many questions. First of all, if they're shouting and helping these people get away with bullhorns, how is that legal to get help from the people in the streets? I know they can protest, but that's not what they're doing.
You're exactly right. When they come to they cross the line of impediment, and that's why I'm working very close, starting this morning with Department of Justice, and where do they cross that line of impediment? So they may find themselves in a pair of handcuffs very soon. So working with DOJ on that, get some legal guidance on that. I'm not an attorney. I know what SecOps is about. I know what crossing that line is, but getting DOJ back up on that. So it's something we're looking at right now, Harris. We're not going to tolerate it anymore. This is not a game. When we show up these sites, this is a dangerous job for the men and women of ICE and Border Patrol and all the DOJ agencies. To have that type of interference puts our officers at great risk. Not only the officers, it puts the aliens at great risk, because anything can happen when we take our eyes off the goal here. So we're addressing that immediately today. I'm addressing OPSEC today, operational security, how these leaks are happening. We've already identified how this operation got leaked. I'll deal with that today.
Okay, that's Homan right there. The New York Post is reporting that there have been 11,000 in these raids so far. 11,000 of the bad hombres have been rolled up. I know President Trump, what I'm hearing coming out of the White House is that he wants bigger numbers, and he wants bigger numbers faster. This is why they brought Gitmo online. They have a huge problem with the logistics. They have a huge problem with money and cash. It's one of the reasons they're talking about the two reconciliations, as we recommended from day one. What are you hearing over at the White House, Natalie, about what the staff and who are doing a great job over there, but what is the word of how Kristi Noem and Tom Homan and Stephen Miller are going to get more support?
Yeah, well, we certainly need to add a few zeros to that. The sort of line that they're running with is that there's just a lack of detention facilities. They don't have the adequate space. I think this dovetails not only with what the Biden regime did, but sort of the lobbying effort that we've seen being mounted from the kind of left-wing resistance groups, particularly the ACLU. I think the logical question after that Tom Homan clip is, who was behind sabotaging that raid? And like I said, in states all across the country, for example, in South Carolina, there's a picture we can put on screen. It's the pink scheduling graphic, but groups like the Democratic Socialists for America, in concert with more mainstream Democratic Party type groups, are actively planning efforts to sabotage ICE raids. You can see that. It's sort of a know your rights campaign. The South Carolina AG has stepped in and sort of threatened them. But this is, I think, sort of shall we say, I think, growing sentiment among the left that they can sort of step in and have agency and get in the way and block President Trump's deportations. The Nation had a long-form piece news today. Think there's nothing you can do to stop ICE. Think again. They talk about preparation. Resistance begins long before ICE agents arrive. Legal organizations and advocacy groups must aggressively promote know your rights education. I was actually walking around in D.C. yesterday, and I stumbled upon one of these flyers. It says, "Do not open for ICE." Denver, you can also put on screen the deportation defense manual, along with sort of, like I said, these know your rights campaigns. But they're pretty aggressive. It's not just saying, lie to ICE or don't open the door. They're saying actively, lie about your immigration status, conceal your identity. If they are knocking at your door, even if you're a criminal, you don't have to comply. Fun fact, the group that created that document on screen has received over $16 million in federal grants. So you want to talk about USAID and everything that's been going on there. So many of these NGOs are funded by taxpayer dollars. But moreover, Steve, the issue too, I think here, it's not just these far left groups. It's really the mainstream media that's amplifying, right? They're putting gasoline on the fire. To that point, the FCC, I believe, is opening an investigation, or at least probing a radio station out in California in the San Jose area that actively doxed ICE agents, their cars, their license plate, the makes, the models, in a radio segment owned by Odyssey, which is a George Soros-controlled network. Just about a week ago. Luckily, the FCC, like I said, is stepping in and potentially investigating it. But I have another clip. I don't know how we're doing on time, but I would like to play. It's an MSNBC highlighting that same group that created that deportation defense manual. And that, like I said, that deportation defense manual trains illegals how to avoid ICE.
Can we play the MSNBC clip? Do we have time for it? Let's hold for a second. We'll do it after a break. I think your furniture's arrived, Natalie. If I hear the knocking on the door, is that Natalie says I can do a hit this morning. I got to do it for my home studio because I got a furniture arrive. People should know she's taking this White House correspondent thing very seriously. She's moved back from L.A. and she's now in D.C. Natalie, hang over a second. Do what? Say
I said better furniture delivery than an ICE agent.
Exactly. I tell you what, we're going to play the MSNBC clip on the other side.
A different beast than Trump 1.0, but people know their rights now more than ever, and we will build towns and cities. We will build fortresses of resistance. So I'm going to paint the scene. Karine is in her home. She doesn't have a keyhole, but she does have a window. The door does have a lock. And there is nobody in the home that has a deportation order. So, con eso.
Tac, tac, ¿no? Sí. Tac, tac. ¿Pueden abrir la puerta? ¿Pueden abrir la puerta? Andamos buscando una persona con nombre de Juana.
¿Juana qué?
Juana Gutiérrez.
No, acá no vive ninguna Juana Gutiérrez.
Por favor, ¿puedes abrir la puerta?
Natalie Winters rejoins us. The furniture arrived. Natalie, thanks for. It's a lot tougher doing from the home studio than the White House, isn't it? You see, your new gig is much easier. It's tough.
Getting a furniture delivery.
As many mean girls over there. As many mean girls over there picking on you. What are we seeing right here? I don't have a problem if people are getting schooled. I have a problem if they're interfering with raids. I also have a problem with if you're an illegal alien, exactly what your rights packages are. Is MSNBC trying to stir this up, or is the media being actually get in the way of law enforcement? We know that Pritzker in Illinois and Johnson, and so for me, instead of going there and getting in those people's faces, I'd go start arresting officials. California just last night, your beloved California, passed $50 million principally to thwart federal officials from coming in to actually do ICE raids and actually remove illegal alien criminals and illegal aliens. And my point is that, hey, Palisades, suck on this. You shouldn't get a penny until that law is rescinded, and that California is reverse sanctuary cities and working with federal officials to remove illegal alien invaders. Ma'am, your thoughts?
Well, that mindset shows you the problem right there. I mean, since President Trump had won the election, Gavin Newsom had been plotting, like you said, $50 million for their state DOJ, I believe half of it being itemized to actually block the deportations, the other half to sort of try to be a guidebook and sort of a blueprint for other states to resist the Trump agenda. But Steve, I think there's another layer to it as well, that a lot of these groups that are involved in the resistance efforts are receiving taxpayer dollars, right? Obviously, DHS has slow rolled and frozen some of the taxpayer funds that are going to these entities, but they still have sizable war chests, not just from the 4 years of the Biden regime. But you can see that group in particular, Steve, and I think it's important to note, right? The first wave of deportations, at least as sort of messaged by the Trump White House and the media, has been, we're just going after the criminals. Yes, obviously we need to expand that, but any deportation efforts that these groups are trying to block right now, they're trying to block the deportations of criminal illegal aliens, right? And like I said, the information that we flashed on the screen, this is very detailed in terms of questions and statements and answers. You can see they're role playing what to do if an ICE agent comes to your door. This is extremely well funded.
Yeah, no, this is not just giving you information. That's training right there. There's no doubt about it. Natalie, we'll let you go about your chores on a Saturday morning. Fabulous couple of weeks at the White House as a correspondent, breaking all kind of news, and particularly looking at the response to Days of Thunder. If you get a chance, make sure you look at the Stephanie Rule last night, because these are broken people. They don't have resilience. They have nowhere. They've always controlled the levers of institutional power. And once you take that, once you strip it away from them, they have absolutely nothing to stand on, including making an argument to the American people why President Trump should be slowed down. He's not going to be slowed down. Natalie, your social media so people can get you over the weekend.
Yes, the emperor has no clothes. Natalie G. Winters on all social media platforms. Thank you for having me on, Steve.
Natalie, thanks. See you on Monday.